enemy. Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. There hasn't been an episode in a little while, but there's definitely a lot of stuff to talk about, both from the weekend just gone all the way up to today. So I'm going to do my best to try and fit everything in, but this may end up getting split into two different videos. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But without further ado, let's get into it. So for those of you who joined the casual stream yesterday, you would have seen we spoke quite a lot about the 5 versus 5, specifically the situation that took place between Craig Richards and Hutchinson. I really don't want to say his first name. Now, since then, obviously there was a big kerfuffle about the video that Boxing King Media put up, and the fact that there was a little bit that had been edited out of it. I think when I watched it, I think there was 2 times I saw like a couple of quick edits, but it may have just been that one particular bit. Well, that part of the video has now surfaced onto Twitterx, as I call it, by way, I'm not sure if he was the only one, but definitely by way of Spencer Ferron, who, so basically within the actual video, you can see Craig and Hutchinson are having a back and forth, and then as Craig's kind of walking off to sort of go and do his walk for his grand arrival, Hutchinson says "bumperclap," and it kind of, if you watch the stream that I said yesterday, I guarantee you maybe what he said in the video wasn't like that bad in isolation, but when I remember watching the Face Off, and he was saying things like, yeah, I'm gonna knock those dreads off your head and things like that, there was, I said, there could be a thing where he's constantly been making reference to Craig's heritage, his cultural heritage, his cultural identification, you know, his faith, you know, if you know where, you know, where dreads come from, and that sort of, you know, there's a certain sect and religion of people from certain parts of both the Caribbean, West Indies, and also, like, you know, East Africa, that are a part of this community. So looking at that first incident from the Face Off, looking at what's obviously in this video, it definitely leads me to believe that while there may have been no overt offensive words, if we're going to say that, or like, you know, racist words in the classic sense of things, there could be a lot of like nuanced you know, sort of underhand cultural sort of cultural associations that have been sort of under attack, and so it could be a lot of offensive things towards someone's, you know, like I said, their background or their upbringing, as opposed to specifically the color of their skin. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I mean, some people, when they choose to banter, or they choose to say certain things, like, they'll go as close to the edge as they can without jumping off, but it can still be classed as an offensive act and an offensive situation. And in this particular one, obviously we now see, I guess, where that part of the video has triggered Craig. Now ultimately, it's not just Jamaicans or Caribbeans in general that have use of that word, or, you know, sort of those words, but realistically we know where those words come from, and we know, generally speaking, when people from outside of the community say certain words, they're not saying them because they want to show love and appreciation. They're saying them to try and mock, clown, and discredit. We see it all the time. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that there's been many different racial epithets, some cultural, you know, some cultural slander, or some culturally insensitive comments that have been coming out. And yeah, that's kind of how I see it. It's, you know, I guess it's not the classiest way to go about your trash talk or go about trying to get into your opponent's mind, but you know what, maybe it's worked, because we all know that for the most part Craig is a very calm, centered, composed type person, never really gets angry, never gets riled up. I mean, when have we ever seen Craig in a face-off or any kind of a situation talking about, I'm gonna punch your face in? Like, that's not normally the energy he will come with, even though that's what he'll do when he gets in the ring. So maybe now Willie Hutchinson has got his you know, maybe he's got that little edge that he was after. He's got that little chink that he thinks maybe in the armor. I don't know how well that's going to work out for him, but that's what he's done. I guess we just gotta kind of wait and see. But yeah, it's I guess the one thing is that it does kind of then make me think to myself, when it was cut out of the initial video and then Boxing King Media did put up the comment that said 2x rated for YouTube, I'm like, what could be 2x rated when the guys already used the C word in the video and you kept that in? Like, that to me would be more of a word that will get you demonetized, as opposed to even sometimes racial slurs. More time than not, you know, they're allowed to slide in. You see it all the time, TikTok, YouTube, on the radio, in person. There's a lot of the time these words, they never get punished, but it will be like the other words or words from other certain demographics that will get you triggered and get you banned. So yeah, that was a bit of a weird thing there. And obviously Craig was on the he was on October Red's channel, shout out to her yet again, and he basically had made mention he ain't really got time for Boxing King Media, because, you know, in no doubt certain things probably would have been said about him, done about him, and he's still sort of allowing certain things to go out. He's monetizing certain bits of content, and those are his guys, so because they're his guys, he's not trying to pull them up. Yeah, the whole situation, I think it will get resolved after fight night, but right now at least we've got the I guess we've got the crux of what happened in that particular moment. And again, if I go back to what I saw previously and little things that I've heard behind the scenes in the lead up to this little bit, it makes sense to me how in isolation that's not particularly that bad. It's definitely insensitive. It can definitely be seen as mocking of someone's culture or whatever, but I think when you take every little thing, there's probably a big succession of different individual comments and insults and stuff that are all very much centered around the fact that he is, you know, a Jamaican, he is a, you know, a Rastafarian, all of these type of things here. So yeah, it's not cool, and I hope he can back up what he says in the ring on Saturday. Otherwise it's going to be a long night for him. But that's my thoughts on it. Please leave yours down below. And last but not least, I guess we've got to talk about the fact that I believe it was on the 26th of May, Anthony Yarde officially withdrew from negotiations for the bout against Joshua Buatsi. Something, I guess, about a promotional dispute, and I guess they're trying to obviously resolve that. Frank Warren has you know, spoken about it earlier on today, and the WBO have given 72 hours for him to decide whether or not he's actually going to go through with the purse bid. Now this very much ties back into, if you guys remember, several months ago, when actually, well, it was from last year to be honest, when Lyndon Arthur fought Dimitri Bivol on the Day of Reckoning card. I found out from several people, and I actually was you know, people in the know, people actually within the camp had told me that he had turned down an offer to face Dimitri Bivol on the Day of Reckoning card. And I remember several people's like, oh, you're always saying stuff negative about Yarde, where's the proof? And I was even told a certain sum of money that was turned down. Now, I don't know if I believe the amount of money that it was. I think I did put it out there. I'm not going to say it again now, but anyone who watched these videos, you would have remembered when I had spoken about this. And I had said, okay, cool. They said they weren't about to do no short notice business, but it was the same amount of time for everyone, to be honest. Everyone on that card had, I think, 7 weeks from the time it was announced up until fight night, to, you know, sort of get ready, get prepared, and fight. Well, 7 or 8 weeks. So it was the same amount of time for everyone, and it was decidedly more than you would have got for the little run out that you done earlier on this year, and the one that obviously you did on the Joe Joyce undercard against Zhang in the rematch. So yeah, so Frank Warren obviously officially confirmed that he was offered the Dimitri Bivol fight that Lyndon Arthur took for Day of Reckoning, and he turned it down. So, you know, there was a lot of talk from Tunde Ajayi on Stamina for Sale and other platforms about, you know, well, let Joshua Buatsi go and do something. Like, you know, he's, you know, we're not the ones that turn down fights. You know, why has he turned down the Bivol fight before? We haven't turned down our fights, we've taken our fights. Well, there's a confirmation right there that you did turn one down, and that's not the first time either. So we've got that situation now, and it's looking hella crazy in terms of that whole side. It's funny because obviously Frank really likes Anthony Yarde, but it's clear that in this situation he doesn't want to revert back to old Frank. He doesn't want to revert back to that guy that's getting ready to, you know, get the lawyers and solicitors on standby, you know, ready to serve up some documents. But it looks like he's itching, like he's got that button, he's just ready to press. All right, let's see how bad you really want to be. And then it's funny because obviously they're talking about things of purses of like 5 million or 3 million and stuff, because if you remember when the whole 5v5 thing was talked about, he said, oh, Craig's at least got to get 1 million, and then I've at least got to get 3 million because obviously I've got the bigger following or whatever. And he did that little sly dig there, so you can tell that he's trying to chase a couple M's right now. But Frank said a very funny thing on the Box Nation channel, where he said, if you take it to purse bid, maybe you are worth the 5 million, maybe someone will pay it, but the true way that you're going to know your worth is to go to purse bid and see what people are prepared to pay for you. I don't know if they're actually prepared to do that, because imagine if you're talking that you want 5 million and a stadium fight and things like that, and then all of a sudden a purse bid happens and the biggest bid is like 650,000 or 700,000 for a fight that's supposed to be a massive, like, all British fight that everyone wants to see. That's a very big humbler, and I don't know if that's something that the egos on that side can potentially like take. Now clearly I think the fight would probably be bid a lot more than that, at least sort of a 1.5, 1.8, but yeah, it's just one of those situations where it's like the veil slipping, the mask is starting to come off, and you just see that when people like myself, who was constantly criticized about, oh, you know, like you always just hating on Anthony Yarde, and bear in mind, I've never hated on him, I've just always been honest about the trajectory, the career, the constant light touches, the sideways talking, the backwards and forwards talking from Tunde about the opponents, and no one else is taking the test that we're taking. And it's funny, if you listen to a lot of the stuff they say, they have a very similar playbook to Tyson Fury. The only difference is Tyson Fury won his big world fights. He took a lot of like meaninless tune-up fights in between, and or fights that no one wanted to see, or fights of people that were supposedly well beneath him, but he won those fights. the career actually patterns a bit closer, I would say, maybe to Huey Fury, because he had a bunch of knockover job, step up to fringe world level, get beat, come back down, beat a bunch of nobodies, go back up, lose again. It's a very similar pattern there, and it's almost like there's no there's no impetus, there's no, you know, sort of there's no initiative to take on harder competition or stiffer tests or sterner tests or proper building fights that are going to get you to where you need to go, unless there's a massive payday in the works. Hence why there's been all of these sub English, southern area level competition opposition, and then jump straight to world level, and then straight back down to English level, maybe British level at tops, and it's just unfortunate that, well, I say unfortunate, not even unfortunate. Right now, it's just showing the things that I had seen from years ago, and now it looks like everyone else is kind of is catching up to what I saw back then. I don't know how this resolves, and to be honest, I think the only way that you kind of get through this is you have to take that fight. If you don't take that fight, you've got to take a fight that's of equal importance or equal test outside of the world titles, because if you go back up to world level and get beat again, that still doesn't necessarily show us where particularly you are. Like, we need to see where you are in terms of amongst your contemporaries, amongst the European scene, so that everyone can firmly establish you are him in this section. And then maybe when the two top dogs leave in a year or two, you can maybe clean up from there or move up to a different weight if that's how it needs to play out. But yeah, it's disappointing. It doesn't look good, and it's funny after the whole we've cornered him like a cockroach in Peckham, and that whole situation there. It's funny. It's like, I don't know how you corner the cockroach and then he's the one backing you out of the room. I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. It's yeah, I don't know. It's the whole situation is a state right now. But shout out to shout out to Mr. Sinclair, Mr. Dwayne Sinclair, Hotshot, for all of the funny memes and stuff he's been putting on, I guess, TikTok and Instagram, in Twitter X, all about, with Buatsi looking for Yarde and looking for Tunde, and they're running, they don't want this work, and like milk cartons, have you seen these ducks, last seen duck in purse bids, last seen in Peckham, or all the funny jokes and whatever. That's all hilarious. And obviously it got serious when Joshua Buatsi actually started making videos. Yo, Anthony, where you at? I'm outside. We had a venue, we had a time. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the money was agreed. We had a date. What's going on? Like, let's get this fight going. For someone like Joshua Buatsi to get out on camera and start talking, that number one, he's frustrated, but number two, now it's for him, it's a bit personal. And I've always maintained that part of the reason that the Yarde side, whether it was because of Frank before, or whether it was Tunde, or maybe it was a little bit of everything, they've never actually wanted that Buatsi fight. I've always maintained that, and this whole situation right here has told me that the only way that they take that fight is for crazy, stupid money. And again, it goes back to that whole British thing that I've spoken about before. When I've always talked about, when I say that someone's scared and they're like, oh, boxers aren't scared of each other. No, some boxers are, and some boxers even tell you that they were terrified of their opponent in the ring, but it was the fear that kept them sharp. It was the fear that kept them alive, or kept them in the game, or kept them vicious, because they had to take that person out before it took them out. But in this terms, yeah, you may not be afraid of that person as a man, but you're afraid to lose to that person, because losing to that person hits different than losing to someone else. We saw it with Kell Brook and Amir Khan. We saw it with Ricky Hatton, and Junior Witter. I think technically you could say we've seen it in terms of, as far as I'm concerned, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. I don't think Tyson Fury's ever really wanted that fight, and again, it's about potentially losing to the Brit. That's the issue. If you obviously remember when he was talking about them sparring stories from back in the day, oh yeah, he really put it on me in sparring. Oh, this new guy, he's the truth, he's the future. Tyson Fury and David Price. Yeah. So it sucks, but right now, I mean, look, you gotta strap up the boots, put on the big boy pants, as they say, and you gotta get to work, because right now these optics is looking crazy, and there's no amount of defenders around that can really justify it and can really sort of make excuses or give reasons as to what's going on here. But yeah, hopefully that all gets resolved pretty soon. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my thoughts on that one. But I'm gonna leave it there now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate obviously being around. More content coming tomorrow. Basis picks will be out. I probably won't be going to Paris like I initially thought. I may have to, so yeah, I'm not sure what time it will be, but you'll get that, and I'll set up the stream for the 5 versus 5 live stream taking place on Saturday. We'll get all of that sorted out soon, but don't forget to like, subscribe, share, become a member if you're interested in all that good stuff. But for right now, the Hardcore Casual out.